Kappa Alpha Psi Incorporated, and also a mentor pursuing the Esquire. Thank you for joining us tonight for episode 4 of our panel series, D9 Brothers-in-Law. Please do not forget to tune in next week at 7 o'clock p.m. for our last and final panel of this month's series. Next week's episode will feature entertainment lawyers currently practicing in New York and also Los Angeles. I know we have a large interest in entertainment law, so I hope you all are able to join us. Please also follow us on social media if you haven't already. Our Instagram page is at Pursuing ESQ. And we also recently started our YouTube page, which is Pursuing the Esquire. All of our past panels have been uploaded, so be sure to check those out. And now I will turn it over to our founder, Ms. Danielle Hardy, to introduce our panelists.
Thank you so much, Alicia, and welcome everyone to episode 4 of our Legal Lifelines series. I'm so excited to have our fraternity brothers on tonight. As if you tuned in last week, you saw that we had a chance to talk to the 9 sorority members, which was a great conversation. I do see that some of them have joined tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we'll go ahead and get started with the introductions. So first up, representing Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is Melvin Allen. He's originally from Arkansas. He went to school for elementary and middle school in California and graduated from Brook Point High in Stafford, Virginia. He's been a member of Phi Alpha since 2001 and was in the Theta Iota chapter, graduated from Radford University in Radford, Virginia, and obtained his master's degree from Radford as well. He attended and graduated University of Baltimore for law school. He was the Prince George's County District Court Judicial Law Clerk in 2009-2010. He worked in the Assistant State's Attorney's Office as well in Prince George's County. He was also an associate at the law office of James E. Farmer, and he opened his own practice and has been practicing with his firm since 2019, where he focuses on personal injury and criminal defense. Welcome, Melvin.
Hello, everyone.
Representing Kappa Alpha Psi is Xavier Lightfoot. He's a labor and employment attorney who spends most of his time advising employers on workforce education, safety, reduction, leave, and liability during the COVID pandemic. His practice areas include employment law, commercial litigation, and personal injury. Welcome, Xavier.
Hello, everyone.
Up next, representing Omega Psi Phi is Jerron Hayes. Jerron was born and raised in New Jersey, where he graduated from North Carolina Central University in North Carolina for his bachelor's. In 2017, Jerron graduated with his JD from Charlotte School of Law in Charlotte, North Carolina. And following law school, he served as judicial law clerk for the Honorable Karen H. Mason in the Circuit Court for Prince George's County, Maryland. Shortly after that, Jerron has started his career as an assistant state's attorney for the Prince George's County, Maryland area, where he handles criminal matters. Welcome, Jerron. Up next, representing Iota Phi Theta is Darius Brown. Darius is a member of Nixon Peabody's Financial Restructuring and Bankruptcy Practice Group, where his practice spans a broad range of matters, including corporate reorganizations and restructurings, mergers and acquisitions, export control and compliance, and general corporate transactions. Darius was born in Florida and raised in Texas, and after high school, he joined the United States Marine Corps, serving in both the infantry and presidential security unit. After his active duty service, he moved to Massachusetts and attended the University of Massachusetts, Boston, graduating in 2014. And he joined the Massachusetts Army National Guard. At the completion of his service, Darius attended Suffolk University School of Law and is a member and state director for Massachusetts of Iota Phi Theta. Thank you so much for joining us, Darius.
Thank you so much for having me. Good evening, everyone.
So we're gonna get started and chat with our panelists a little bit. It is such a pleasure to have a panel full of male attorneys this week because our viewers, it's important for our viewers to have representation. We've been talking about that every week in our panel series about the importance of representation. So if we could get started and start with Melvin, if you could share with the viewers what inspired you to become a lawyer?
Um, well, I have a deep history in Alpha in my family. So when I was in elementary and middle school, I had the ability to go onto the campus of Arkansas State University and hang out and with cousins, elder cousins of mine, and kind of see the light of Alpha early. So I was probably predisposed. Notwithstanding that, um, I knew I was going to be a lawyer living in the state of California during the O.J. Simpson trial. Um, During that time, I knew I wanted to be probably the next Johnny Cochran, and there was a lot of things going on during that period. But I was inspired by O.J. Simpson trial and Johnny Cochran during that period, and then moving to Virginia and into the campus of Radford University and Virginia Tech. I was impressed further with the alpha men on that campus. And then that's when on my third semester in college, I thereafter, went after the light and became an alpha. So went from my family to then being further inspired in college, and then perhaps with the O.J. Simpson trial in California, it's led me all the way to, plus 20 years later, being still on this road.
Wow. And that's such a pivotal case that, they still mention in law school today as a reference for so I appreciate you referencing that because that's such an important case for a lot in the community. Xavier, if you could share next with us.
Yeah, sure. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. As far as what inspired me, it's a little different. I grew up in Columbus, Georgia, and Macon, Georgia, and for me, I don't have anybody in my family who's an attorney or anything like that. But growing up, I had an interest in reading and wanted to share with folks everything that I had read. So my folks kind of plugged it in my ear. Hey, you're gonna grow up and be a lawyer. I didn't think much of it, but when I was going into college, I went to East Carolina University, which is in Eastern North Carolina. And while I was in college, I was trying to figure out what I was going to major in, and I felt like business was something that would serve me well because I couldn't do science, so I wasn't going to be a doctor or anything like that. But as I was doing that, I had the opportunity to meet an individual who was in his third year of law school at North Carolina Central University at the time. And he became a mentor for me, and he kind of helped me understand that there's a lot of different things that you can do with a legal degree. You don't have to, go in the courtroom if you don't want to, like what you see on TV. And kind of opened my eyes to a few different things. And so just, being exposed to someone who was going through law school at that time frame and had more information and just insight to the practice of law. It got me into looking that was having a mentor who was in law school and helping to open my eyes to all the different different types of attorneys that you can become. Now today I am a trial attorney, but that certainly, got me going in the right direction of wanting to be an attorney and go to law school. So that was my inspiration.
Thank you so much for that. Jerron, if you could share with us your story.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so for me, mine is kind of similar to Xavier. It was more so I don't have any attorneys in my family. I'm the first attorney in my family. However, most of the things that kind of spearheaded me in the direction of law was conversations that I had with my father early on growing up. I was always big into like politics and history. I'm a nerd at heart. So with that being said, my dad was like, well, I think things that like growing up in the Black community kind of like it bothers you a lot. Things that are unfair to us, things that are not just in our community. So he said, in order to join politics and in order to like change law, change policy, you have to join it. So that was one of the things that I would think about as I grew older. Starting out, I know my sister and I were 6 years apart. She pursued law at first. She didn't end up going that route with her career, but my sister was a big inspiration in my life, especially when it came to education. So I kind of picked up where she left off, and I just kept continuing to carry the torch as far as like pursuing a degree in law. When I got to North Carolina Central University, I found out that my HBCU is one of the few HBCUs that have a law school. And not only that, it's just more so that we have a prominent law school. Many of the state legislators and politicians that come out of North Carolina actually graduated from North Carolina Central School of Law. So that's one of the things that kind of led me in that direction. Another thing is more so once I started interning in Prince George's County after my first year of law school, I noticed that, wow, so many Black attorneys, Black judges out here. It's kind of something that it's like a unknown. You don't really see that many Black judges and Black lawyers in one concentrated area. So that was really exciting. Growing up, my parents, they had a few legal cases due to personal injury, slip and fall, car accident cases. And I always noticed that a lot of their attorneys in South Jersey were white. There's not really many Black attorneys that come out of South Jersey that I know of. This is kind of off topic and I'm not trying to rant, but my first dentist was a dentist out here in Prince George's County. It just shows that there's not really many Black people in like corporate America or big professions like law, medicine outside of this area. So that's one of the things that actually kind of continues to push me to, be a Black male figure, not just a Black male figure, but a Black male attorney in the profession. So thanks again for having me, by the way.
Absolutely. And the representation is why we're doing this. With all the statistics that are out there about the lack of diversity in this profession, it's so important that we're able to provide that representation for members of our community, because oftentimes they don't see us. They don't see us in the courtroom. They don't see us in the boardrooms. But we are there. We just need more visibility. So we appreciate you being a part of that. And Darius, if you could share with us your inspiration.
Sure. Thank you. So my inspiration started right after military service. I was looking for a career that had a vast, sort of area to grow in, similar to the military, where you're able to do a wide range of jobs. And I thought, as similar to the other panelists, that in the legal field, there's only one type of lawyer, which was a trial attorney or in the courtroom. I had no idea that, IP, intellectual property law, was a family law, transactional law, even bankruptcy, were areas of law that, were available. So my grandmother, who's also here with us today, one of my grandmothers, she's an attorney out in California, and I got to speaking with her. And there was another gentleman at Phillips. I was there working as a security guard, and he was an IP attorney. And he got to talking to me about what his job was in particular, different than a trial attorney. And then all the other areas and, different law firms. I had no idea that there were AM 100 and AM 200 and all these different acronyms that lawyers tend to be knowledgeable about. So after doing research, that is what really drove that motivation to get into law school, to take the LSAT even before then, just kind of speak with other attorneys. But I really think, my grandmother and that those attorneys at Phillips, those IP attorneys, that sort of gave me the true insight besides what I may have saw on TV. I can watch Suits all day, but was that the accurate representation of law? No. So that really was the motivating force behind it, was that need for a new career, that new field, that adrenaline rush that a lot of veterans tend to, seek. Where can I find that even outside of the courtroom? Because I know a lot of times, even in our practice, the trial attorneys are the superstars, so you tend to, only think that is the only route to go. But I found that, I have that same adrenaline fuel, going even on the transactional side, and I've had some time in the court, and that's what really kept me motivated to continue going. Even in the midst of law school, I know there's days that you want to kind of stop, close the book, and call it a day. So that really was the driving force behind me.
Absolutely. And I thank you for sharing that as well. I think sometimes, I know when I've spoken to students before, like you, they weren't aware of just the vast areas of law that you're able to practice in. And for in-house or for corporate, it's not as flashy as the courthouse or the courtroom, but I like to say we're the superheroes without the cape. So we definitely are needed these days. So to continue the conversation, because each of you touched on the lack of representation when you were pursuing law school and eventually taking the bar to become a licensed attorney. A couple of panels ago on our judges panel, for those who tuned in, our judge, Scott Carrington, had mentioned the disparity of Black men in the legal profession. Today, according to the American Bar Association, there's only 5% of African American attorneys in the entire legal profession. Of those 5%, only 2% are Black men. I want to speak to each of the panelists about how we can, as a community of Black legal professionals, as a community, just as a Black community in general, how can we encourage Black men to pursue a career in the legal profession? And if we could start with Jarius.
Sure. I think the very first thing to do is those who are practicing, us as Black men, as Black attorneys, we have to help law students and those that are aspiring to get into the legal profession. We have to help erase that stigma that this is not a field that we belong in. That is, it's a field that requires some high level of, say, intelligence or some high level of some type of right that was given to you through birth or something, that your skin color alone just won't allow you to be amongst your peers in the legal community. I know for me that was the biggest fear that I had, was, do I belong here? And once I found, I looked to the left and right of me, I'm starting to see more people of color, and then I started to see more people who look just like me as an African American male. That eliminated the stigma that I didn't belong there. I know that in law school, lawyers tend to have this sort of presence that they're the smartest person in the room, and we just have all this knowledge, when in fact it's about the ability to go find that knowledge, about that ability to research a topic and then come up with a applicable argument, or take, say, a multi-million-dollar case or even a small case and be able to see it through to the finish line or to that deal. That is a stigma as well, as we tend to think that we only belong in the courtroom sometimes because we tend to have this stigma placed on us, or this improper view on us that we're argumentative and things, and we have to erase that. And the moment we erase that, I think, is the moment that we start to see more of our peers, more of our people go into the legal halls and actually practice. So I think it's definitely on us who are in the field to help erase that stigma of, you don't belong here. There's other areas of the law, and here, let me invite you into what I do,
Absolutely. And that was very well said. Xavier, if you could share with us next.
Sure. I'll say that, I think another thing is that, Black men are interested and Black women are interested in practicing law. I think one of the things that trips a lot of people up is what you have to do to get to law school, right? And what I mean by that is, a lot of these schools, they want you to have a certain GPA coming out of undergrad. They want you to have a certain LSAT score. And there's been studies done, and there's research on this that shows that, Black folks typically or traditionally have scored lower than their white counterparts on these standardized tests. And, when you've got certain measurables that are barriers to your entry into the law school, that can trip you up before anything. And so it's kind of getting around that. One thing that I went to North Carolina Central School of Law, and one thing that Central does is Central has what's called a performance-based admission program, and it's for people who have been out of school for many years, and or just going back to law school, or going to law school, or for folks who didn't do so well on the LSAT or don't have a high GPA. They give you an opportunity to come in for 2 weeks throughout the summer and prove to them that you can do the work. And in that program, you do some of the work that you would experience as a law school student. And if you're successful, then you're admitted to the fall class for that year. And so that's a way that kind of helps those folks who do have lower LSAT scores or a lower GPA to kind of show that, you have the intellectual aptitude to do the work, and you got the work ethic, and, your scores are not a true representation of who you are, and your grades are not a true representation of, what success you can have in law school. I'll be completely honest with you. I mean, I had a horrible GPA coming out of undergrad, and a lot of that was probably attributable to joining a fraternity, but that's what it was. I didn't have the best LSAT score either, but Central gave me an opportunity to go through PVAP. I did well, and I mean, when I was in Central, I did very well. I graduated with honors, near the top of my class, and it hasn't been an indicator of me performing well in the profession or passing the bar. I mean, I passed the bar the first time, so I think you got to try to work around those barriers, and it may be that you got to talk to folks who are interested in going to law school a lot earlier, in middle school, in elementary, and letting them know that, hey, if you want to set yourself up for success, then you are going to have a good GPA in undergrad. You are going to have a good LSAT score, and you do want to study for that and train for that LSAT to kind of avoid those issues. But I think that's something that we can work on, so that way we can have greater representation.
Absolutely. I think that's a fantastic program that Central does, because, I think sometimes a barrier for people is saying that I'm not a good test taker, right? And that's not, an indication of whether or not you're going to be a great lawyer. So I think that is a really great program that Central has for the students. Melvin, if you could share with us next.
Yes. Well, first of all, I think I want to respect the question. Thank you. I think it's a great one. But it's also, for me, amazingly deep. I want to answer the question with the premise and understanding that I think that we as a people are behind. I also want to answer with the question with the understanding that that I think that the system for sure is not indicative of what our people can accomplish. But there is a system out there in place that, especially as it relates to law school admittance, is out there, and it's a difficult system to overcome if you think about the LSAT, or if you think about the pre-admission law school test, and then the first year law school, and then thereafter graduation may be okay, but then what practice it takes to perhaps pass the bar, and then passing the bar, and then the character stuff. So whatever your life was beforehand, since high school, was all at play. I mean, that's a lot of landmines, if you can, if I may. But I want to answer the question. How do we perhaps enhance our exposure? Well, I think one of the things, if you think about how society, American society is this, we're in a place where if I'm a certain, even if I'm a trash man or I'm a plumber, well, most likely when I teach my seed, whoever they may be, that person, if they're kind of into their parents, which is kind of the way American society goes, then they're predisposed to being that perhaps of what the older generation is. And I think when I say we're behind, I want to say that with the understanding that, well, I have a few friends that have their fathers as lawyers. And when I speak to them, I get an understanding on how they're a little bit ahead. And me being a first generational lawyer, I see how it was, and why it was very difficult to go through this journey to get to wherever we may think we are. But how do we do better? I think we have to focus on the younger generation, because we have to find a way to get hope instilled early. I told you I was somehow instilled by a lot of other things, but I remember a lot of distractions which could have put me in a circumstance where grace would not have grace prevailed for me, but I definitely could have been in a situation a time or two where what could have perhaps prevented me from being a lawyer. So I heard my brother speak about how even when we got to college, well, I experienced the same thing. Well, pledging in my third semester took me off track for GPA. So somehow, even if you decide to go in a National Panhellenic Council, even if you are good and great, you perhaps will receive a nick in your GPA just based on you desiring to be good at everything you want to be. How do we get to the hope? I mean, think about all the things that's going on in the world today. I can tell you that when I graduated in the year of 2000, I thought that some of the things that we're experiencing today in year 2020 would be impossible. I thought that somehow, based on all of the things, me trying to be this criminal justice major, master, all these things that I was studying about, and we were learning about, you know, really the beginning of DNA and how DNA has caused many of our people to be kind of wrongly accused and innocence projects, and how many of programs work and don't work. So there was so many things going on in and around 20 years ago, so that even right now when we're talking about Black folks in college admission, and I remember being on the campus of Raff University in Virginia Tech, how during every year, and I was over there for a period of 6 years, I wasn't impressed with how Black attendance actually increased in both campuses. How either Virginia Tech or Radford, we were fighting to get a monument on DC. We were fighting to have either Virginia Tech or Radford University even acknowledge Martin Luther King's birthday. And I'm like, okay, well, in 2020, that would be weird. But why are we fighting 20 years ago to acknowledge Martin Luther King's birthday on the campus? Right. So at all times, I'm thinking about how to fight and increase our people. And even at this point, I am a trial lawyer. I happen to be in civil and criminal law, and the trials are numerous just because of being a prosecutor. Some of these folks y'all mentioned, Judge Mason, Judge Hill. Well, I clerked and worked underneath them at the beginning of my career. So it's interesting you speak about them. Those are great folks. So I don't have all the answers to this. Like I told you, it was a deep and complex answer. But to me, overall, we have to find a way to inspire early, because by the time you happenstance figure to get to whatever point we're thinking about interest in law, if it gets to around the time you're in college, most of the time that's too late. Most of the time, because you haven't thought about how to focus on your GPA and all these other things which are important, because if you don't get your pre-law school examination test up high enough, then you need to focus on your GPA. And so part of me even going to grad school was to ensure that I could get into the law school that I wanted to. And we talk about these programs. Well, guess what? I'm one of those recipients of going to a program at University of Baltimore where I had to show for two weeks that I was worthy of doing whatever they told me to do, and I did that. Other options opened up, and I still went to the University of Baltimore. But it is those things that are important for our people to have opportunity once being even open to the chance, once getting to college, to then thereafter fight and scrap to do the law thing. And then there's still this other thing about the financial burden that it takes to get to law, and how long it takes to even overcome those things. And then, you know, the government versus the corporate circumstance to even overcome that. But so it's a tricky circumstance for us.
Absolutely, it is. And I think going back to Xavier's point with the central program for the students and the program that you are in, I think more schools should take advantage of that to give another alternative to increase, you know, diversity in their student body, especially in predominantly white institutions in this country. So that's very, very important. Jerron, if you could share.
Sure. First off, I would like to say that I came in through a bridge program as well at Charlotte School of Law. It was called the AMPRO program. During that program, we had to take two classes. One was Fourth Amendment, which is under the bridge of criminal law, criminal procedure. The next class was negotiable instruments, which is under commercial law, as our transactional law, as we know. So I'm not a good standardized test taker. So that was one of the things that actually helped me out. And again, I went to a PWI for law school, although I went to North Carolina Central for undergrad. And that was one of the ways that Charlotte School of Law increases diversity, was through the bridge program or the import program from which it's called. But to answer the question at hand, I believe the best way to increase not just Black attorneys, but Black male attorneys is to introduce the topic as early as possible. With that being said again, I'm from South Jersey. Although I wasn't raised in the urban community, my parents, fortunate enough, were able to raise my sister and I in a small township, very small town called Pennsauken. But it's right outside of one of the most dangerous, or two of the most dangerous cities in the nation. One being, I grew up 10 minutes outside of Philadelphia, but I grew up right down the street, 4 blocks away from Camden, New Jersey. Typically, it's considered the top 10 most dangerous cities, if not number 1, from year to year, if not every other year, every few years. But with that being said, some of the people that live in the area from which I come from, their earliest introduction to the legal realm is the criminal justice system. And I'm not talking about the good side either. I'm talking about they have family members, aunts, uncles, mom, dads, cousins, brothers, and sisters that are, they get introduced to the criminal justice system through being locked up and getting convicted of a crime or something like that. Side note or side story real quick, I was working in Camden, New Jersey as a teenager. I was a camp counselor for a summer youth program called Urban Promise, and I was dealing with middle schoolers. My middle schooler, his name, I'll never forget his name. His name was Bebo. He was Puerto Rican. He had an ankle monitor on in 7th grade. So his whole family, mom, dad, brothers and sisters, all of them went through the criminal justice system. So with that being said, is not only do we introduce this, the legal field to people early, but introduce the positive side, bring positive people, bring lawyers into the conversation, show them that being in the legal field could be a good thing.
Yeah.
And just being, having an honest, candid conversation with these people, because I read an article within like the last year and a half that said that in the Black community, all we do is push, when we talk about college and professional schooling, we push the easiest career fields. And that's not like a shot against any career field like social work or mass communication, but going to North Carolina Central University, that was one of the biggest career fields that everyone chose. But when it comes to a arduous program, like a difficult program, I don't think it's really one of those of similar to like medicine or the legal career or law, engineering, such as a program that a lot of North Carolina A&T students are introduced to early on, and most of their students go there and come out with a significant degree, and they have significant prominent careers. So the thing we have to push is not only that the legal field is necessary, it's worth it, but it's not going to be easy either. So like, stop just pushing. As Black attorneys and as Black people in these prominent professions, we have to push the fact that the career is worth it, but it's not easy at the same time. And I think we have to change that narrative.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was a really great point. And I think one thread that I heard through each of you, your experience and your opinions, was that, it's not enough just to have representation. You have to have good representation, and timing of that representation is important. Because I think if we are able to reach the students at a young age, expose them to a positive member of the legal profession that they may not see on TV or they may not see in the news or around them, then that can at least inspire something in them to want to further research or want to see that there's a possibility, for them as well. So transitioning over to a related topic to representation is mentorship. So this organization, Pursuing the Esquire, was founded in order to support aspiring minority lawyers get to and through law school, to diversify the legal profession. And a big part of our organization is our mentorship program. So if each of you could share just the importance of mentorship to you and how it's been helpful in your career. And if we could start with Chris Awad. He is representing Phi Beta Sigma. He is now joining us. Welcome, Chris, to the conversation. If you could kind of share with us the importance of mentorship to you.
Thank you, Danielle. I appreciate it. So mentorship is very important, especially as a young attorney. You're going to go into a field that is based on referrals, right? So it's really about people knowing you and being able to put you in contact with people that maybe in the same area be doing the same things that you want to do. So having a mentor that actually can talk to you, figure out what you want to do, and kind of point you in that right direction is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Also, as far as mentors, another reason that you need to have a mentor, I think, and rely on the mentor, is that they've been through some of the situations you're going to go through, whether it's changing a career, whether it's figuring out how to deal with coworkers, trying to figure out as far as like, you know, what things you need to work on as far as in the career, like writing or negotiations, or those various strategies that will help you become more successful and a more accomplished attorney, not necessarily in a financial sense, but actually being comfortable in your skin and doing the work in whatever area of law that is. Mentors will help you with that. So I was fortunate that my mentor was actually one of my professors. And I was kind of conflicted because I was in an okay position because when I was in law school, I'd actually worked at a law firm as a legal secretary and then as a clerk. And so I didn't have to go through a lot of the trials and tribulations as far as finding a job, trying to get the firm job, or working with other organizations to figure out what I wanted to do during my second year or after law school. I had a nice situation. And my professor, she knew I wanted to work in the community and do something related to helping people. And she was very, very direct with me when she would tell me that, look, you have this opportunity. Working in the firm, while it might not be what you want to do, you can actually parlay that and take some of the experiences that you get from there, the training and things, and actually become a better attorney. And then when you feel like you can be a better asset to the public interest firm, do that transition. And it made a lot of sense to me. But she was great, and it wasn't somebody that I would have necessarily expected to be my mentor when I went to law school. But our relationship developed, and she really became a mentor and kind of like a mother figure to me, and really helped me navigate the pitfalls of law school and also the beginning stages of my career. So if I were to talk about mentoring, those would be two very important reasons that I think everybody should have a mentor. One is to provide you with the guidance that you might not necessarily think you need, but just from having those conversations with somebody, you'll figure it out. And like I said, the second is also just to make sure that, you know, when you're going into law, you have somebody that's been there and can put you in the right situations with the right people that can actually help you along to become a better lawyer.
Absolutely. And similar to you, I've been fortunate in the fact that I've had really great mentors, you know, while I was getting to this point, as well as in my career as well. So that's a main reason why this organization was founded, to provide mentorship to minority attorneys. Darius, if you could share the importance of mentorship to you.
Thank you. So I'll speak on it more so as a junior associate at a firm, and it's an area, and kind of tying that to our previous question of how we get more Black attorneys and more African American male based attorneys. For myself, this is not my world, and that's the way that I saw it. You know, this is you know, big law firm. You're going to be, you know, busy. Can you even have a life? You know, these are sort of the stories that you hear. And I don't, you know, I think a lot of times if we get into this particular arena, we are trying to acclimatize to the workload, but we haven't even acclimatized to the particular realm around us, which is just the firm life, or just say if you're a DA, then, you know, even in the public law side. So my mentors definitely focused on tailoring my lifestyle to that of an attorney first, based differently than if I were in a different field. This is one of the fields similar to medicine or theology, where it comes with a particular set of skills that differ from what you'd be doing outside of that particular field. And I did not have those skills. You know, you go to law school, and a lot of times you're learning the lawyering skills, but you don't know actually how to be and carry yourself as an attorney. Everybody believes that you have just the answer when it comes to illegal questions. I mean, if your phone doesn't ring once you pass the bar, even when the day you say you're going to law school, your phone's ringing, people are asking you all type of legal questions and you want to help, but you don't, necessarily even know how to respond just to say, let me get back to you, or here's what my workload is. So my mentors definitely tailored my lifestyle to that of an attorney first. And then we started learning what my particular job was going to be. In bankruptcy, I'm blessed to be able to, have trial experience and transactional experience, but I have no idea, or I should say I didn't have an idea about how to actually say, hey, this is what I do. Let me explain to you what I do. I just say bankruptcy, assuming that somebody would know what that area of law is. So I think that's how that mentorship tends to tailor your actual new career field. As a law student, we definitely know it's inviting you into that realm of you're going to be learning a higher level of education. In undergrad, we understand that we have our classes. We have to kind of get out of that 13th grade mindset, thinking that we're just going to, ease through freshman year, ease through sophomore year. Here, you're held to a higher standard in law school because you have your own schedule, you make your own schedule, you follow your own schedule, and you really don't get much guidance unless you go and get it. So when you happen to get that mentor who's going to help you maneuver through law school, it's best to find that same equivalent of a mentor who's going to also help you through your first few years of practice. As my brother mentioned before, that is highly important, and that's what I value the most. So it's super important to me, and I'm actually very, very lucky that actually one of my frat brothers happens to be my mentor and work at the same firm. He's one of the reasons that I'm at the firm. So that you couldn't ask for any better thing than that. But for those of us who might not have that, it's okay to seek out your mentor. They don't have to come to you. A lot of times it's great to go up to that individual and say, hey, would you mind teaching me this or that, and actually guide me on this particular road of my legal career. So that's truly what the value of it is to me. It's highly important. It's needed. I have a few mentors that I can lean on, and some from a bigger picture, as far as, hey, I need to see the general view of this or the broader view of this. But I do value my more direct mentors who can tell me, hey, I just got asked to make a file or something, and I have no idea how to even maneuver through that. So my day-to-day mentors or my operational mentors are truly important as well.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you made the point of going after the mentor, because I think sometimes it can be intimidating for law students or even college students to approach an attorney and ask them, can you be my mentor? And instead they try to either make a good impression, hoping that, someone would come after them and say, I want to mentor you. But oftentimes, as you know, and everyone on the call, who practices, we're all very busy and we all have a lot on our plates. And so our cognizance level may not be of who can I mentor. It's more so in the approach of, can you mentor me? And taking that initiative, I think, is very important for students to get that access. Jerron, if you could share with us the importance of mentorship to you.
Sure. I would first like to say that anyone that tells you that they got there or they got where they're at on their own, that is a complete lie, because
yes,
everyone's not Drake. They didn't get there by saying he did it all by himself. That was a little joke, y'all can lie. But I think mentorship is definitely important. For myself, it's kind of weird because none of my frat brothers per se helped me actually navigate through the legal realm of the law field. It was more so other people that I met along the way, but I did meet a lot of great people along the way. And it was more so that I kept that bridge up between me and those people, because even if I met them like a few years ago, I never lost connection with them, because I know either I can help them out, or they were older than me, so more so they can help me out. But if they even need anything from me, even if it was outside of the legal field or the legal realm, I was there for them. And it's important to have mentorship in the legal field, more so because I think there's a statistic out there that says most attorneys commit legal malpractice within their first, from the time they get barred to like their first 3 to 5 years, that's pretty quick. But it's mainly because a lot of people go out there on their own and they're not really asking the right questions, or they're not keeping in contact with the right people that will help them navigate and do the right thing at all times. So I don't want to piggyback off too many people. I agree with most of the other panelists, but that was what I had to share based on that question.
Great. That was fantastic. Melvin, if you could share with us how mentorship has impacted you through your career. Oh, I think you're muted.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Okay, no, thanks for letting me speak last on the subject. It's interesting to hear my brother speak on it because it is absolutely true that in such a profession or any profession, you have to speak to someone that's did this before you in order to get to wherever you think you want to go. So that is like, that is absolutely a golden rule. And for me, I've had many different mentors. I've heard you all speak of some folks, and I remember in law school, I depended on. I remember this judge who was a teacher. I mean, I think his name. I remember his name to be Judge Karasik, and he told me how to. He basically taught me how to pass the bar on the first time, pass the bar for the first time. And then I remember the first two people that I met when I was a law clerk trying to be a prosecutor. It was Judge Carrington and uh, Judge Simpkins, and they happened to be sorority sisters of mine. But I was an alpha. They knew it, and I was just transferring from one place of the courthouse to another after making a decision on what I was going to do. So mentorship at all times is important. And another thing that you all spoke about is, and I can definitely see it now from the business owner perspective, is, I just hired an intern today that I wasn't looking for, that in my mind for months I've been looking for, from the University of Maryland. But she happened to be looking for an opportunity for herself. So even though I didn't have the time to go out and look for her, just because she was aggressive on her stuff, pre-law, looking to do whatever, it's this happy marriage that I think is going to happen in a month. So as far as that person wants to be a lawyer, regardless of whether you want to be transactional in the courtroom, you somehow need to be aggressive and a go-getter. You somehow need to figure out a way to be accountable of your time. You somehow need to be a way to be semi-independent, because there is some level of independence that happens in law school. There's a certain point in law during this Socrates method that you're just kind of dependent on your own. So with that said, mentorship is very important, but it's also important to be aggressive, and you got to find a way to help yourself as well as find people that can help you.
Absolutely. That is a really great point. And I'm glad that you reiterated that to our viewers, most of whom are students. So we hope that that's encouraging to the students to take that initiative and seek out the mentors that you think aligns with what you want to do. And I'm going to go ahead and swing this over to our Q&A. Kirsten has some questions from our audience for our panelists, and she's going to go ahead and ask those. So Kirsten, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Kirsten Evans, and I'm a member of Pursuing the Esquire. I am also a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So I am particularly excited about our panel this evening, as I thank all of my brothers in Greekdom and my brothers in law for sharing all of their insight tonight. We do have a few questions from the audience that we received in the chat, and if we don't have time to get to all of them, I apologize. We are running towards 8 o'clock now. But the first question that we have for all of our panelists is, what do you wish you would have known in undergrad or as a law student that would have made your life or your career a little easier now? And we can start with Mr. Melvin.
I struggled during my first year. I remember being the black dot in the back of the room, even though I got along well and everyone treated me well. But the biggest thing that I had an issue with was that there was like something going on in law school where somehow, you kind of either got to get in or fit in or understand what's going on spiritually around you. And you kind of got to figure out, don't be an isolationist or whatever it may be. So before you go to law school, it behooves you, unlike me, to have some idea of what that first year may be like, because indeed it is your most difficult year. And I feel like I went in so naive that looking back, that if I would have had a little bit more understanding about what goes on during the first year, then I perhaps wouldn't have even been in the questionable circumstances, which led me to maybe not even get past my first year, even though I'm happy and everything is good now as a trial lawyer and all these other things. But there were systematically some things that were set up during the first year of law school, which I feel like puts us in a position to, on an average level, fail. So we just got to somehow get a better understanding about that first year once we get to over the standardized test issue and actually get admitted. That first year, we got to find a way to work better together as a people.
Thank you for sharing that. The first year is definitely crucial in law school. I remember we had to read a book called One Hell of a Ride, and it gave us some insight on what you could do to be successful in your first year, because it is so incredibly crucial. We'll have Xavier up next to answer the question.
Thanks, Kirsten. It's a great question. I don't know, one thing that I wish I'd known in undergrad that would have prepared me better for law school, the practice. But what I can say, and the reason why I say that is because when I was an undergrad, I did my best to try to seek out mentors early and seek out folks who could give me a blueprint on how to get into law school and how to go about my first year of law school and the rest of my career in law school, my second and third year. I still do that now. I think the best thing that you can do is to surround yourself with, first of all, if you don't have people in your family like myself who have forged the path for you, then what you ought to do is surround yourself with people who can fill that gap and who can stand in and provide you with a blueprint and basically put you on game and let you know, what are the things that are going to help you to be successful in whatever stage of life you're in whatever field you're in. And with the practice of law, I try to do that as early as possible. Like I said, I got a mentor who was in law school my second year of undergrad. I interned with one of my fraternity brothers that summer, who was an attorney out in Charlotte. I connected with other attorneys once I graduated, even while I was working in corporate America before I was going to law school, who could, help me out as far as trying to get into law school since I had a horrible LSAT score. And one of my mentors actually got me the opportunity to get into the PBAT program at North Carolina Central. I think the best thing you could do is surround yourself with people who can fill that gap and help you know what's to come and how to shape your career moving forward. Even now in practice, part of my practice as a trial attorney, I work with the best trial attorney with my firm. And he's one of my mentors. And I reached out to him the first day and let him know, hey, I'm interested in personal injury. This is what I want to do. I know that you graduated top of your class. You're killing it here with the firm. Can you take me up under your wing? And he's done that. And, every part of the process, he'll call me and we'll talk about certain things. And, some things that I don't even ask him, he'll fill me in on and try to give me other opportunities just because he knows it's going to help in my development with my career. So I think that's the best thing that you can do.
Thank you so much, Xavier, for sharing that with us. In the interest of time, I'm going to move on to the next question. And this relates to our overall theme of this evening, which is our brothers-in-law. And I'm going to pose this question to Darius. So how do you think your experience and network in your fraternity has prepared you for the practice of law and your career overall?
Thank you. And I go back to what I was speaking with, being blessed to have a mentor who's also my fraternity brother and who's also in the area of law. If it wasn't for that, I don't think that I would be in many of the different places that I am within the area of law. So that network definitely helps. In joining a fraternity, we know, you know, you're going to meet a ton of other, you know, educated people that look just like you, and they have degrees, they have careers, they know somebody who knows somebody else. And that pipeline of just network just continues. It's almost, you know, so vast that you don't even know if it ends at one point. And, you know, without that, I don't think that I would definitely, you know, even finish law school. I wouldn't have probably been even able to explore what different areas there were. I would probably just take the first opportunity that came to me. So that network also helps you to maneuver what is being presented in front of you, if it's a good deal, if it's a good offer, if it's a good opportunity. And you're going to get a lot, you know, in law school. And it's definitely something that we just don't go into law school thinking. And even, you know, slightly going backwards, you know, that network allowed me to take my mind off of law school. So having fun. And then I don't mean, you know, just going to the bar every day or finding that one bar that's around the corner from the law school, but there are a lot of clubs in law school. You are going back to school. It is a higher level of college. You know, it's not so much undergrad, but it's grad. So join those clubs, you know, ask your network what they did while they were in law school. It's not just constant working. You can never really let your head down or either, you know, wipe, you know, take a breather for a minute. We have to understand that we can do that. And that's what that network really helped me to do, was take my mind off of what it is that I'm trying to do, which is be just like them, you know.
Thank you so much, Darius. That's very true. Our organizations, they provide such an instant connection in professionally and personally. So thank you so much for answering the questions from our audience. And I'm going to turn it back over to Danielle for our closing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. And thank you so much to our panelists. I enjoyed speaking to each of you. And I know our viewers learned a lot from what you shared tonight. This is the conclusion of our Greek week. So I appreciate you supporting not only Pursuing the Esquire, but also our fellow Greek members that have joined last week and this week that support our community as well in our efforts. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for taking your time out and sharing with our viewers today. It was a pleasure to speak with you. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in. We have viewers that have been tuning in with us all month long, every episode. And next week is the conclusion of our series for now. We will have our entertainment law, which is much anticipated, our panel where we will hear from entertainment attorneys from top companies and law firms, both on the East Coast and the West Coast. And we hope that you will tune in. Again, thank you so much for joining us for episode 4. You can check out this episode starting tomorrow. It'll be on our YouTube channel for you to replay or share with those who were not able to join us tonight. And catch us next week for the conclusion of our series. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks again for having me. Have a good one. Y'all be safe out here.
Thanks.
Thank you.